The courtroom fell deadly silent as I stared at the words projected on the screen. My fingernails dug crescents into my palms as my husband's lawyer's words echoed against marble walls. Your Honor, my client seeks full division of assets because Mrs. Oliver failed her most basic duty as a wife. She's sterile and couldn't give him children. My vision tunneled to the manila envelope in Judge Parker's hands, the envelope containing the truth that would shatter my husband's carefully constructed lies. 4 years of blame, of treatments, of watching Nathan's face harden with each negative test. 4 years of believing my body had failed us both. My gaze shifted to Nathan sitting beside his visibly pregnant mistress, both radiating smug certainty. The same expression he'd worn last Christmas when he'd told his entire family about my condition while I stood frozen beside the holiday ham, holding back tears. My name is Rose, I'm 29, and I gave up my career as a pediatric nurse. This is the story of how I discovered that the person drowning me was the one pretending to save me. I'd met Nathan at a hospital fundraiser 6 years ago, standing awkwardly by the silent auction table in a dress I could barely afford on my pediatric nurse's salary. He approached with 2 champagne flutes and a confidence that felt like gravity, pulling me into orbit around him. You look too interesting to be standing alone, he'd said, handing me a glass. I'm Nathan Oliver. Even then, I noticed how his introduction included no question about who I was, just the assumption I'd want to know him. And I did. Nathan was a successful real estate developer with perfect teeth and stories that made important people laugh. I became another acquisition in his carefully curated life. 8 months later, we married in a ceremony that cost more than my annual salary. Focus on starting a family, he insisted after the honeymoon. I make enough for both of us. So I resigned from the pediatric ward where I'd worked since graduation, ignoring my supervisor Vivian's concerned expression as I cleared out my locker. You're one of our best nurses, Rose. Are you sure about this? I'd nodded, certain I was making the right choice. Nathan wants us to start a family right away. We don't want to wait. For 3 years, each month brought the same ritual: temperature tracking, ovulation tests, scheduled intimacy that felt increasingly clinical. And each month, the same crushing disappointment when the tests came back negative. Nathan's warmth cooled with each failure. His touches became rare, his glances accusing. Maybe if you'd exercise more, he'd suggest over dinner. My mother had 4 children by your age. Small comments that built like sediment in my chest until I could barely breathe. The doctor visits became a particular form of torture. Nathan insisted on accompanying me but would disappear with the specialists for consultation while I sat alone in sterile waiting rooms. The doctors would return with vague assessments. Results are inconclusive. Keep trying naturally. I'd catch whispers of nurses looking at me with pity. I'd spend hours researching fertility treatments, diets, supplements, desperate to fix whatever was broken inside me. Meanwhile, Nathan worked later, attended more business dinners, his disappointment in me obvious in every dismissive glance. If you've ever had your value reduced to a single function you couldn't perform, you understand how completely it hollows you out. 6 months before that final courtroom moment, I'd been dusting Nathan's home office when I found the divorce papers on his desk. Not hidden, just waiting. As though I didn't deserve even the pretense of discretion. Nathan, what are these? I held the papers when he returned home. He didn't look up from his phone. What does it look like? I'm done wasting my life on someone defective. Defective. The word hit like a physical blow. I don't understand, I whispered, though part of me did. The growing coldness. The late nights. The business trips that never quite aligned with conference dates. Amanda is pregnant, he said, finally looking at me. My assistant. 24, fertile and not broken. I sank into the chair, unable to process the twin betrayals. He'd been sleeping with his assistant while blaming me for our childlessness. The cruelty was so calculated it left me breathless. That night, his mother Judith called. We'd once been close, or so I thought. She still had my cell number from when we'd planned holiday gatherings together, and I hadn't thought to block her. Finally, my son can have the family he deserves, she said without greeting. You should have been woman enough to let him go years ago. Nathan moved out the next day, leaving me alone in our 4-bedroom house filled with empty nursery catalogs and unused fertility monitors. When I checked our joint accounts, I found them emptied. He'd transferred everything to business accounts in his name only, leaving me with $200 and a maxed-out credit card. The following week brought a mass email to our entire social circle. Subject line: Why I'm moving on. Nathan detailed our fertility struggles with clinical precision, painting himself as the patient husband who'd finally accepted his wife's biological failure. The email went to our shared contact list, which included my personal email that Nathan had set up for me years earlier and still had access to. Friends stopped calling. Invitations disappeared. I became a cautionary tale overnight. The court summons arrived in a crisp envelope. His filing claimed I had been financially dependent and contributed nothing to our marriage. He requested minimal settlement because of my failure to fulfill marital obligations. I sat in my empty house, reading those words over and over, wondering how my life had become so small. After 3 days of barely eating or sleeping, I called Tara, an old nursing school friend who'd become a family law attorney. I met Tara at a small cafe downtown the next day. He can't just leave you with nothing, Tara said over coffee. Marriage is a partnership, not a business transaction he can terminate without severance. You don't understand. Nathan has connections everywhere. The judge, the court clerks, everyone respects him. Then we need to be smarter than him, she said, her eyes narrowing. Tell me everything. Tara agreed to represent me pro bono, knowing my financial situation. She even helped me apply for emergency temporary support while the divorce was pending. It wasn't much, but it kept the utilities on and food in the refrigerator. A week later, we arrived at the courthouse for pre-trial mediation. The session was humiliating. Nathan's lawyer, Benjamin, arrived with a stack of medical records. As you can see, Mrs. Oliver visited fertility specialists 12 times. Not once did Mr. Oliver require treatment. Benjamin's smile was practiced, professional. The financial burden on Mr. Oliver has been substantial, with minimal return on investment. I stared at those records, suddenly remembering something odd. Nathan had always insisted on attending appointments alone for the consultation portion. The doctors told me results were inconclusive, but to keep trying naturally. Why had they never tested him? 9 months earlier, Dr. Payton had said something strange during an appointment. I'm so sorry about the test results. I wish I could share more, but patient confidentiality prevents me from discussing your husband's file without his consent. At the time, I'd assumed she meant general medical privacy. But sitting in that mediation room watching Nathan's calm confidence, I started connecting pieces. The first day of actual divorce proceedings, Nathan walked into the courthouse with Amanda on his arm. She was visibly pregnant, her hand resting protectively on her stomach. My throat tightened at the sight. In the hallway, Amanda spoke loud enough for everyone to hear. It's so sad when women can't accept biology. Nathan deserves to be a father. Nathan said nothing. Just stood there while she humiliated me, his silence an endorsement. When we filed into the courtroom minutes later, Benjamin painted me as someone who'd lived off Nathan's success while failing to contribute anything of value. Every word was designed to diminish me into nothing more than a biological failure. Then Nathan took the stand. Your Honor, I supported my wife through years of disappointment. I paid for treatments, specialists, everything. His voice dripped with false sympathy. But there comes a point when you have to accept the truth. She couldn't give me a family. He mentioned how he'd graciously allowed me to live in our home rent-free for 6 months. Forgot to mention his name was the only one on the deed. Showed credit card bills from when I'd had to buy groceries after he froze our accounts, calling me financially irresponsible. I sat there, hands shaking, but something in me refused to break down. 2 months after Nathan filed for divorce, I'd felt desperate, isolated. That's when I remembered Dr. Payton's strange comment. So I called the fertility clinic and requested copies of all our medical records, using my patient rights to access my own file. What I found changed everything. My records showed normal fertility markers. Completely normal. But there was a page marked family file that required both spouses' signatures. The clinic had added a note: husband declined to share results with wife per his written request. What was Nathan hiding? When I showed Tara the records I'd received, she filed a legal motion to unseal everything. The judge initially denied it, citing privacy, but Tara pushed back. If medical condition is being used as grounds for asset distribution, all relevant medical evidence must be disclosed. What they didn't know was that I'd kept everything. Every text message where Nathan blamed me. Every email. Every voicemail. And Tara had subpoenaed something even Nathan's lawyer didn't see coming. Dr. Payton had been troubled by Nathan's manipulation and agreed to submit sealed testimony to the court, including a note about witnessing emotional abuse during appointments. I sat through weeks of humiliation, knowing the truth was coming. Every insult Nathan threw made the eventual reveal more powerful. In the weeks that followed, Tara and I met regularly at a small coffee shop 3 blocks from the courthouse to review the case. Rose, I've seen a lot of divorce cases. This isn't just about money. He's trying to destroy your reputation so no one questions his story. She explained that a sealed envelope from the fertility clinic had arrived at the courthouse. The judge would review it before the final hearing. Trust me, when the truth comes out, his whole performance falls apart. As the trial continued, Nathan grew more confident. Started arriving late to court, acting casual. His mother attended one session, glaring at me from across the room. In the hallway, I overheard them talking. I'm so glad you're getting away from her. Amanda will give you beautiful children. Nathan laughed. Should have done this years ago. The night before the final hearing, Nathan posted on social media a photo with Amanda. Caption, starting my real family. Some dreams just take finding the right person. He tagged mutual friends who'd believed his lies. I almost broke down. Then Tara called. Let him celebrate. Makes tomorrow even sweeter. The morning of the final hearing, I wore a simple blue dress. Nathan arrived in an expensive suit, Amanda on his arm, both looking smug. Judge Parker entered with a manila envelope. The courtroom went quiet. Before we proceed to final statements, I need to address evidence that's come to light. His face was stern, unreadable. I've reviewed sealed medical records from Lakeview Fertility Clinic, submitted under court order. Nathan shifted uncomfortably. Benjamin looked confused. Mr. Oliver, your testimony stated that your wife was sterile and unable to conceive. Is that correct? Yes, Your Honor. That's what we believed based on years of failed attempts. The judge's expression hardened. These records tell a different story. Mrs. Oliver's fertility tests from 3 years ago show normal ovarian function, healthy hormone levels, and no barriers to conception. The courtroom murmured. Nathan's face went pale. Your Honor, I don't understand. However, your records, Mr. Oliver, show severe male factor infertility. You were diagnosed with this condition 4 years ago. Gasps filled the room. The judge read from the document. Doctor's notes state, patient informed of diagnosis. Requested all communications regarding his condition be kept confidential from spouse. Patient refused recommended treatment. I stood up, voice shaking but clear. You knew? You knew for 4 years and let me think I was broken. Tears streamed down my face, but fury burned through them. Your Honor, this is inappropriate, Benjamin tried to interrupt. Sit down, counselor. I'm not finished. The judge's voice cut through the room. Tara stood. Your Honor, we have additional evidence. Text messages between Mr. Oliver and Amanda from 8 months ago. The screen lit up with Nathan's text. Once the divorce is done and everyone thinks it was her fault, no one will question our timeline. Amanda was already pregnant before the divorce filing. The timeline proved she'd been pregnant for 7 months. The affair started while we were still married. Nathan had manipulated everything to hide his infertility and his infidelity. You destroyed my career, my friendships, my reputation, all to hide that you were the reason we couldn't have children. Rose, I can explain. No, you can't, because there's no explanation for cruelty like this. Judge Parker's voice was ice. This court finds that Mr. Oliver engaged in deliberate deception, emotional abuse, and financial manipulation. I'm ordering full forensic accounting of all assets, immediate restoration of Mrs. Oliver's access to joint accounts, and I'm suggesting she pursue separate damages for emotional distress. I walked out of that courthouse into sunlight. Tara walked beside me. You did it. You stood up. Nathan stood by his car, Amanda crying beside him. The truth about his infertility had shattered her illusions too. She was 7 months pregnant with a man who'd hidden his own medical condition and blamed his wife. I heard later that she left him a month after the hearing, eventually raising their child alone. I didn't need his apology or his shame. I'd already reached out to my old nursing supervisor. There was a position in pediatric ICU, my dream department. I'd lined up a small apartment. Modest but mine. Nathan approached. "Rose, I'm sorry. I never meant. You meant every word. But here's what you didn't count on: I'm stronger than you ever gave me credit for." I walked away without looking back. I'd spent years measuring my worth by his standards. His approval had meant everything. His disappointment had crushed me. But standing in that courtroom, hearing the truth, I'd found something better. For once, his lies didn't break me. They freed me. I finally understood I was never the problem. The settlement came through 3 weeks later. Fair division of assets, plus additional compensation for emotional distress. I received half the value of our home, which Nathan kept by buying out my portion. The court also awarded me back pay for the years I'd given up my career at his insistence. I enrolled in a certification program to advance my nursing career. Started small, but it was mine. If you've ever been blamed for something that was never your fault, you know how that weight feels. I want to hear your story. Where are you watching from? Drop your location below and tell me. Have you ever had to fight for the truth when everyone believed the lies? Hit subscribe if you believe people can rebuild after betrayal. Your story matters, and this community is here for you. I read every single comment. You're not alone.